Okay, what up ladies and gents? We got some lovely rain sounds in the background and I'm here to talk to you about the late game Barbarian build. Many of you have been asking how to build the Barbarian in the late game. I'm here to teach it to you. My Barbarians reach level 60, but on stream you would have likely seen me taking on content 10, 11, 12 levels higher. And of course laying the smackdown on the Butcher, which was 11 levels higher in like 20 seconds. That clip will be at the end of this video. But basically the Barbarian, if you've been following my journey, is so strong, and the way to make it strong and take advantage of all the Barbarian's strengths is to build it a particular way, and I'm going to teach you that now. For those of you that have checked out the alternative best Barbarian build for leveling, okay, this is a follow-on from that. We step away from Call of the Ancients to make use of other skills, and I'll go through that shortly. First and foremost, let me address the weapon expertise. We still continue on with two-handed sword expertise. Slot it into your technique slot because this will apply its bonus when using any weapon, as you can see right there. However, the weapon we actually use is the two-handed mace. This means that we get the advantages of both of these and can absolutely decimate our enemies. Some people have also suggested the two-handed axe expertise. This is pretty awesome, FYI. It does increase your damage to vulnerable enemies, so this was also considered a viable choice, but because we use our bludgeoning weapons for pretty much all of our work, especially to make use of the hammer, we cannot take advantage of two-handed axe expertise. However, whirlwind builds can, so just take note of this. Whirlwind builds require this instead, but you can always level that up later. It doesn't really matter. Okay? Two-handed sword expertise, two-handed mace expertise. All right, now we get into the skill build. Okay, now that you understand the technical expertise behind the weapons and why we use them, all right, let's go through the skills really quickly. I'm going to try and shorten this down as much as possible while still explaining the key points, all right? Lunging Strike is your basic Fury builder of choice. Why? Because if you go with the Enhanced and then Combat Lunging Strike, you can... Critical strikes with Lunging Strike, which is pretty much all the time, will grant you Berserking for 1.5 seconds. This is crucial because not only does Berserking give you 25% increased damage and movement speed, alright, it will literally allow you to absolutely devastate your opponents by giving you damage reductions and more Fury building, which is seen later in the build, okay? For your core skill, you're going to be using Hammer of the Ancients, and you'll see the skill assignments here: Lunging Strike, Hammer of the Ancients, your 3 shouts, and then Wrath of the Berserker. Coming back to the skill tree, Hammer of the Ancients obviously does a lot of damage, and when you take the Enhanced Hammer of the Ancients and Furious Hammer of the Ancients, you can basically up the damage to the 9s, alright? You can just pump the damage of Hammer of the Ancients up to an unbelievable extent. All right, so yeah, it is definitely not something you want to sleep on. All right, okay, great. Now that you understand that, coming down to your third node, your defensive skills, you'll be making use of both the shouts here. Rallying Cry obviously first, because when you use Rallying Cry, all right, with enough cooldown reductions, you get 7.4 seconds of Unstoppable. Alright? Added to that, you generate Fury and generate even more resources whenever Rallying Cry is activated. So this is absolutely crucial for boss fights, and also when there are a lot of elites around you and they're literally forcing your hand by having all these CCs pile on you. You use Rallying Cry to just, be immune while dishing the punishment back to them, okay? I do have this 1 rank in Imposing Presence, but I may change that later because 5% additional maximum life is not really necessary, but I just keep it around. If at the end game stage I need to change it out, I'll probably chuck the point somewhere else, maybe into damage reduction while berserking, but yeah, that's basically it. You can't make use of Battle Fervor, so that doesn't matter. But yeah, you can, like that one, I haven't really thought about what to do with it, so I'm just leaving that be for now because I have nothing else that I can add into it, even if I wanted to, so I'm just leaving it there. Outburst and Toughest Nails is still kept at 1. This is to enhance your ability, because when enemies attack you, they will take the thorns and bleed damage, alright, which will slow them down, allowing you to crowd control entire hordes even when you're taking damage. Alright, so you don't have to directly deal damage to them to trigger the slow, which is why I'm still keeping these on. Some builds may remove these in favor of even more fury generation. I would say play around with it your way. Alright, if you find that this is useless, then chuck it into even more fury generation and you can just go absolutely ham. It's up to you. I may change this toward the end game, but for now I'm leaving it. Alright. Challenging Shout gives you damage reduction, which is so crucial. This is also the way to pull in hordes toward you and survive the entire hordes. If you got a horde of trash mobs, challenge them all. And this is basically what it's used for, survival or for dealing with hordes. Okay. Enhanced Challenging Shout gives you additional bonus maximum life. You know, it's just a nice little temporary bonus. And you will gain 3 fury every time you take damage with the Tactical Challenging Shout. This allows you to generate lots of fury while taking on damage. Alright? Great. War Cry is the next skill that you want to have. Why? It increases your damage dealt for 15% by 15% for the duration. You gain Berserking for 4 seconds. And it will fortify you for 15% of your base life. This is also one of your quick ways of generating Fortify. You can also generate more Fortify via Rallying Cry, but I prefer the Fury generation via the Tactical Rallying Cry. I leave it up to you, but I honestly generate more than enough Fortify just through War Cries and taking on damage with Thick Skin. All right. So I've had no trouble fortifying this way, but you can adjust as needed. Next, you want to get Booming Voice to extend the shout skill effect durations, as well as you want to have Raid Leader. Why? Because this is a great way of sustaining in the later part of the game. Okay? It is a great source of healing, and it just helps you overall. Next, you want to get 1 point in aggressive resistance, not for the damage reduction. I mean, the 3% is just an extra. But what you really want is while berserking, fury generation is increased by 18%. You have 3 ways of going berserk. Lunging Strike, War Cry, as well as your Wrath of the Berserker. So you're going to be berserk for a lot of your time, which means Prolific Fury helps you a lot. I tested between Endless Fury and Prolific Fury. I find that Prolific Fury works when you're really pushing the limit of your build, like you're fighting 10, 11 levels higher. This helps more than this. So that is just my personal thought, but you can use either as your additional generator. And if you use this one instead, you can take off the aggressive resistance, chuck the point elsewhere, up to you, okay? Up to you. Now, coming down to this tree, again, it's only passives. You need to have Hamstring 1 rank no matter what, because you're going to let your bleed effects slow down the enemy, allowing you to therefore take advantage of affixes like damage to crowd-controlled enemies, damage to bleeding enemies. This is so crucial and so useful, so you must have this, non-replaceable. Pit Fighter, more damage to close range enemies and distant damage reduction, take it. Okay. No Mercy, more critical strike chance versus immobilized, stunned, or slowed enemies. You slow every enemy that you fight. Take it. Thick Skin, each time you take direct damage, you fortify for 1.1% of base life. Take it, you need it. When you have Fortify over 50% of your maximum life, you deal 12% extra damage. Take this as well, because it's going to be so useful later on in your Paragon tree when you can Fortify after spending Fury. Okay, this just takes your fortification to a whole nother level. So I'll be coming down this tree here, but I'll explain the Paragon tree separately. All right. And then you come down to your last tree. We've stopped Call of the Ancients because Call of the Ancients doesn't really help you in World Tier 3. In World Tier 3, you're going to be dealing with a lot of enemies that can CC you, especially the elites. All right. So you need something that can grant you unstoppable. Guess what? Wrath of the Berserker does exactly that, granting you unstoppable for 5 seconds, and for the next 10 seconds, which is the effect of Wrath of the Berserker, alright, you will basically keep going berserk every time you deal damage with a basic skill. Alright, so effectively Wrath of the Berserker lets you berserk for 15 seconds, because when you deal direct damage with on the last second of this, it'll last another 5 seconds. Alright, great. Now that you understand that, you also take Prime Wrath, which increases the movement speed and fury generation while you've got Wrath of the Berserker. This helps you hit the major hits with your Hammer of the Ancients. And Supreme Wrath of the Berserker means that every 50 fury you spend increases the Berserk's damage bonus by 25%. But it's not just berserking from this. It's berserking from all sources while this is active. So for that 10 seconds, Whenever you keep spending fury and going berserk, you just go more and more berserk. This is more used on the whirlwind builds, and it has a greater effect on the whirlwind builds, just an FYI, but it still works well for Hammer of the Ancients as well. Last but not least, Unbridled Rage. Core skills deal increased damage but cost 100% more fury. Alright? Absolutely useful for this. When you do that, you will shatter souls. Okay? So now you understand the skill assignment. Let's get into the Paragon tree. Okay, so I'm not going to waste your time. We're just going to move over real quickly. Okay, this time I'm going to remove my cam again. Okay, Paragon tree wise, you want to start out here. Okay, and I know most people would go strength for the first one, but I went with willpower. Why? Because several things later on, I can't remember where, here, they focus over on willpower over strength. All right, later on in your board, you might see some more of these also taking place there. Willpower again. So I went with an early bit of willpower just to pump myself up a little bit. All right, and then the rest were strength. So I went up the right-hand side to physical damage, obviously, because you want that. I took as many physical damages as I could and just this little bit of extra maximum life. Then I went up the right-hand side again and got the glyph slot. The first glyph you are going to need is Crusher. If you do not have this glyph, you are going to have a miserable time. For every 5 points of strength, you deal 2.7% increased damage while wielding a mace. This is giving me plus 21.6% extra damage. All right. And it is absolutely awesome. The additional bonus is not that great, but here's the kicker. Once you increase the radius of this, you can pick up even more strength spots. There are like a total of, well, I can access 2 extra ones now, but there are a total of like 4 extra spots here that I can get. Therefore, driving my total bonus to about 60, giving you a lot of extra damage with maces. Don't sleep on this. It helps you a lot. All right. Okay, great. Now that oh, and it will also count these 2 as well once the radius increases by 1. So that's even more mace damage. Don't stop leveling this up until you increase the radius. That's what I'm working on right now. Okay, after you finish this first board, and of course, please do get the armor node as well. I still have to capture this armor node and this armor node for an extra 100 armor, because the more armor you have, the more you resist damage, but I just haven't finished it off yet. I will at some point, but just not now. I then immediately tried to access the next board, because the next board to me is extremely crucial. This board is extremely, extremely important for one reason. There are 2 entire nodes that give you more fury, all right? And by capturing more fury, you get even more damage and more means of using your skills. All right, so don't hesitate to capture as much of this board as you can. However, if you don't have enough points, capturing just one set of fury is enough. And right now, I plan on getting the Warbringer legendary node. So this is the Warbringer board. You will need to finish this board off first before proceeding on. And for the glyph slot, you will want Exploit. Okay, I went up the left-hand side because there's a physical damage node here, which you can collect to increase your physical damage. And every damage you do is physical, so make sure you grab that. And then I went up even further to get the Hungering Fury. Then I went down. Then I plan on going down so I can get the Warbringer legendary node. Once I have all this, I'll pretty much be set. And then I'm going to go to the next board. Where am I going to go from here? Well, a lot of people would think that the Hemorrhage board is a pretty good idea. I haven't decided exactly where I want to go yet, but there are a lot of choices, to be fair. There are quite a number of choices that you can utilize here, depending on what you intend to do. And since you've got the exploit glyph, which makes everybody absolutely vulnerable, you can choose to go ham with whatever you want. I might choose the Berserker tree. That's absolutely possible. You can go with Blood Rage for the bleeding tree. Okay. Granting you more Berserker, which filters into the next one. You can go for the Hemorrhage tree as well. So there is really a lot that you can do. But I would leave the choice up to you. Me personally, I'm probably going to go for the Berserking tree first, because it just makes sense to use that. The Vulnerable tree also works very well, FYI, because it has good physical damage nodes, several vulnerable damage nodes. quite worthwhile for you. In that, you can also go for Bonebreaker to take advantage of Fortify, but that one also I leave up to you. Like, basically, it's about, you know, what you're gonna end up using more in the field, because all this overpowered damage with 10% like two-handed bludgeoning damage is useful, but again, do you fortify enough and fortify quickly enough? Like, for me, I find that I do, but if you don't, then Bonebreaker is useless. So you really have to decide where exactly you want to go. All right. Don't take Flawless Technique though, because this is all about one-handed weapons. Weapons Master is okay. It focuses on physical damage. All right. But this one I would probably take as a later board just for the glyph slot. And if I can pick up the physical damage nodes, I might take that. But other than that, not really very keen on this board. Okay. So that's the Paragon tree in a nutshell. All right. Thank you for watching this far. Now we're going to have a quick word from our sponsors, and then I'm going to get into the legendary aspects and the gear that you're going to need for this build. Okay, check out this little sponsor video. Hey there guys, here's a quick message from our sponsors. If you guys have not yet checked out World of Warships, alright, use the link in the description of this video to register an account and give it a go. Alright, that's all I'm asking you to do. You will get a free starter pack worth a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, give it a try. Alright. They've been very nice to work with, and honestly, I had a lot of fun playing their game. This is some footage from me playing with a buddy of mine and also completely missing shots on the enemy ship right there. I hope your aim is better than mine, alright? Anyway, thanks for watching this, and back to your scheduled content. Oh yeah. Okay, what up guys? Thank you so much for watching the sponsored vid. Now I'm going to go through the legendary aspects that you guys need, and then we'll talk about gear stats and then gems, okay? Starting with the legendary aspects, the core aspects for this build are number 1. This one you'll be putting in your amulet or your hammer, okay? But basically you need the Ancestral Force legendary aspect, where it'll allow your Hammer of the Ancients to quake outward, dealing a large portion of its damage to enemies. This is crucial. Make sure you have this. Next, the Bold Chieftain's aspect is core, but unfortunately you cannot find it in a dungeon. So you'll have to find one that, you'll have to find a ring that has this. And basically whenever you cast a shout skill, the cooldown of that skill will be reduced by 1.8 seconds per nearby enemy. Or, well, it'll be reduced between 1 second and 1.9, but it doesn't matter. And this is very crucial to your cooldowns. If you have this, you can skip over cooldown reduction on your amulet. Okay, next is the rapid aspect. This is absolutely essential for this build. You must get this as high as possible. This one I happen to have 25%. It's good. All right. Now, the other core aspects that you are going to need, all right, is I have some of them here. This one, expectant aspect. Attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill cast by a certain percentage up to 30%. So this is very good to have. You want to get at least 15% on it. That way 2 basic attacks and you are at full damage for your next core skill. Okay. The other one that I have is Limitless Rage aspect. Each point of fury you generate while at maximum fury will grant your core skill a certain percentage of damage up to, and you can get up to like 60% on this, which is pretty crazy. I do like this. So you can, because if you fill up your fury, each point of fury you generate, which is again really easy to do, is going to boost up your core skill damage so that when your Hammer of Ancients hits, it's going to hit super hard. Okay, in terms of the defensive aspects, the most important one is Disobedience. You need to have this. Why? Because you will gain a certain percentage of armor when you deal any form of damage, and it will stack up to a limit. You must absolutely get this. Okay, it is critical to almost every build in the game. So get your Disobedience aspect as high as possible. Other than that, there are no uniques that are absolutely necessary, but I did manage to get Rage of Haragath, which was really, really cool, because not only does you do get damage reduction from enemies that are bleeding, which thanks to your thorns will be everybody, all right, but you gain extra critical strike chance with physical damage against elites, and you get a boost to physical damage, and you get thorns. Okay, this is everything you need. And the kicker is the unique ability of this thing where you have up to a certain percentage chance to reduce the cooldowns of non-ultimate skills by 1.5 seconds whenever you inflict bleeding on elites. So this is really helpful for boss fights to get your shouts up and running faster. All right, I absolutely love this because you inflict bleeding with everything. Okay, so this is awesome, and it's what keeps my shouts running even without cooldown reduction on the amulet. All right, so this has been very helpful, but if you don't have this, that's okay. Go for damage reductions. Other than that, there is nothing else that I would consider core, so you can experiment freely with everything. I do like this berserk ripping. I've been using it quite nicely, and I also have one that dealing direct damage against bleeding enemies helps to stun them. This is just for additional CC, which I found useful. All right, so yeah, that's it for the aspects of the build. Next, we're gonna get into gear. Okay, like I said, this is a whole different animal that you gotta tackle. What stats are really important? Starting with the jewelry. For your amulet, you're gonna want fury cost reduction. Absolutely essential. Cooldown reductions if you don't have any of the other stuff in there, but these two are the key. Take whatever else you can get after that, yeah? For your rings, critical strike chance is a must-have as high as possible. Then go for everything that can increase your damage. For example, here I've got damage to slowed enemies and critical strike damage. Both are essential and core, but critical strike chance is the most important. Same here, critical strike chance, and then it's all the other stuff. Like I happen to get really lucky with this ring. I have damage to crowd control, damage to while berserking, critical strike damage. All of this is what stacked up my barbarian's damage to the 9s. In terms of your armor, starting with your helmet, cooldown reduction, basic skill attack speed. Don't sleep on either of these. You must have both. No other choice. Okay, whatever else, take what you can get. Damage reduction is preferred, obviously. Chest piece, damage reduction versus close, distant, and then whatever else you can get. Okay, so damage reductions are the key. If you can get damage reduction from against enemies that are bleeding, this is also perfectly fine. Bone weave gauntlets. Okay, sorry, for your gloves, bone weave gauntlets, you will want to get attack speed and critical strike chance. These two are core. You cannot replace them. Okay, make sure you have them. Then take whatever else you can get. Pants, standard. Damage reduction versus close, damage reduction versus far. But other than that, take what you can get. Here, I happen to get a lot of damage reduction versus close, and it was nearly perfect. So I sort of kept this, and I said if somebody wants to range me to death, I'll have to close the distance with them. But dodge chance also helps, so I have that. I would prefer not to have it. I'd rather have just straight up damage reduction, because dodge chance, although it completely eliminates some damage from hitting you, the problem is that a lot of your stuff is based on people hitting you. So yeah, you may not want dodge chance, but it was useful enough. And basically at this stage in the game, you're still just going for the core stats, which is again whatever reduces damage. Okay, for your boots, movement speed is your most important stat. Other than that, you take what you can get. I happen to get fury cost reduction again on the legs, which is absolutely awesome. Best choice is movement speed, fury cost reduction. Okay, in terms of your weapons, with the barbarian, please remember that only your two-handed bludgeoning weapon is going to be used for all of these skills. Why? Because you can choose to choose what weapon you want to strike with all of your skills. I covered this in my mid-game barbarian build, so you should know how to select this by now. But basically, you're gonna be using the two-handed mace for everything. So for the mace, all right, ideally you want to choose some good stats for it. Like this one, I happen to have a perfect stat roll. Okay, I happen to have a perfect stat roll across the board. And I still have I could even roll for higher crowd control enemies damage. But basically, two-handed mace, this one, DPS per second is your priority. Then after that, all your other stats, you should try and get whatever ramps up your damage to the 9s. All right, so here I've got critical strike damage, close enemies, and crowd control enemies, and all stats as well. This is basically as perfect as it can get. All right, for your one-handed weapons and for your sword, you choose the same thing, but you don't pay attention to damage per second. With these weapons, the only thing that matters is the affixes. So what you want to ideally get is damage to close enemies, bleeding enemies, critical strike damage where possible. All right, try to stack as much critical strike damage as you can, but also take what you can get. If you genuinely cannot get something, like for example with this one, I couldn't get anything other than what I rolled here, so I just, you know, went with it. But it doesn't mean that that is like legit the end of it. You know, just do what you can, but you don't have to like feel like, okay, if I can't, then yeah, I have to get ideal stats. No, just here, just pay attention to the affixes as much as you can. Two-handed sword, same thing. I just got stunned, bleeding close. But by the way, you want to use, just so you know, for these one-handed weapons and for the two-handed weapons, you must use swords. Why? Because the swords come with the natural critical strike damage increase, which you need. You cannot go without it. Okay, so all of the other weapons like maces, axes, all this, throw them out. They're not needed. All you need are swords, because the natural critical strike damage plus all of the affix bonuses that you get is what will allow you to hit those insane crits with these weapons. All right, and that is basically it. That covers your gear. That covers your stats. Oh, gems. So sorry, almost forgot the gems section. Gems are simple enough. All right. In your rings and your jewelry, I recommend either 2 skulls, 1 diamond, or 2 diamonds, 1 skull. Up to you. Base it on your own feelings. Me personally, I find that the Barbarian has more than enough armor, so I just went with 1 skull and 2 diamonds because I don't have much intelligence to resist elements with the Barbarian. So having a little extra diamond power helps a little bit. But if you find that you don't, like you've got more than enough resistances, then just go for another skull. Okay, you can adjust that based on your feeling. For your armor, please stack rubies, rubies, rubies. Maximum life is your saving grace. That's all you need. Chuck them in there. Okay, for your weapons, you should be using either emeralds for critical strike damage versus vulnerable enemies, or sapphires, critical strike damage to crowd controlled enemies. I prefer sapphires because sapphires are guaranteed. Whereas the emeralds provide the same effect, but if the enemy is not vulnerable, I mean, I have my exploit glyph to make them vulnerable, but it lasts only 3 seconds. So during longer fights, I prefer the crowd controlled enemies, but there's an upside and a downside. Okay, so which one do you choose? Crowd controlled enemies is more useful against general enemies, like elites and whatever, but less useful against bosses. Whereas the emeralds are far more useful against bosses, especially when playing in a party, okay, but less useful in common combat. So you have to weigh it up. Are you the boss killer or are you the elite killer? I find that my Barbarian is a tanky elite killer, and against bosses, I'm not really losing all that much damage by having damage versus crowd control, damage versus vulnerable. You could go half and half as well. That it's not wrong to do that. All right, the effect evens out against most mobs because you're not going to care. Fights are going to be over real quickly. But that if you feel like a lack of balance against bosses, you can try that as well. Genuinely, it's not a problem for me, so I just went with sapphires across the board. Yeah, okay. That brings me to the end of this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to support my content, okay, before we go to the combat clips, I'm just going to say it straight. You can grab a channel membership if you want. Up to you. I leave that choice with you. But here's a thank you for all of the lovely channel members who have gotten me this far. You guys have been so supportive in, you know, watching the streams, keeping the sound on. And also, I've seen many channel members supporting me as well. So here are the channel members. Detoni982 at Plus Ultra, our top channel member. Jerry Fast, Rogue Assassin, Oh Mr. Green Buff, Zach NFG, all prestige. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to our honored robots as well. OG, Corey Ryu, David Leshin, Mookie Mocha, Rena, Chase Taylor, Scuddy, Nathan Strong, Sabingu, AKJ, Lady Neo, Joey Danze, A. Ripley, Daraverse, Che D12, I'm Peeps, Syed Assad, Tuan Gwen, Coda CMF, one of our longest members, FYI, Kami SMH, Conrad C, Nate the Great, and Benjamin Savage. Thank you guys so much. You guys are amazing. Thank you to all of our cool and weird bots as well, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Y'all have a good one. Sorry that this was so long, but I hope the information helps you guys smack down with the Barbarian as hard as I've been doing on stream. Check out the combat clips. Enjoy. Okay, ladies and gents, so we are currently in the Mallwood Dungeon, tier 18. Okay, I am level 60 right now. I'm here to demonstrate how this Barbarian build works. The monsters, I think, are 10, 11 levels higher. All right, so basically how this is intended to work is plain and simple. We go in and, you know, I think this one doesn't have a boss, so it's kind of like exactly the same as I showed with the sorcerer. I'm so sorry, I wish I had a different dungeon, but this is the only tier 18 I had at the time. Okay, but as you can see, the Barbarian build is so strong that when it's against trash mobs, like nothing is even going to touch you. If you ever need to heal, you can just do so via the potion drops or just by screaming. Okay, think of yourself as Junker Queen, because that's basically what you are. I am not even using any of my abilities. You can already see that the damage for the Barbarian is ridiculously high, especially once you get the exploit glyph, which is something that I'll talk about, or rather, sorry, because I'm actually filming this before I filmed the main video. It's something that I would have talked about in this video. The exploit glyph is basically key to your entire playstyle, because it allows you to, you know, go absolutely crazy. If you ever get stunned or stopped when there's an elite, right? That's when you use your rallying cry, which you just saw me use right there. Okay, oops. Took a hit there from the explosion. I shouldn't have stopped to teach, but regardless, your rallying cry is what you will use whenever, you know, whenever you need to become unstoppable. It is absolutely useful because it grants you about 7 seconds of unstoppable, which is really great for taking on the elites, especially if they come with a lot of affixes and stuff. So yeah, now we've got the buff, so this isn't really a great showcase because I've got a buff, but there is a clip of me taking on the Butcher in about 20 seconds. That was from last night's stream. It was absolutely sick, so that's coming up as well. I'll try to get footage of more elite kills if I can. If you see a suppressor, please delete the suppressor straight away. Okay, so here we have an elite, right? Usually, if they have something to slow me down, I will use the rallying cry, and I'll also activate my war cry because that will help me just take them out super fast. I activate Challenging Shout only if I'm ever surrounded by a large number of minions, because Challenging Shout is more for the damage reduction that you get. You get 40% damage reduction, which means that even the biggest hits are not going to do anything to you. All of that is exceptionally useful. All right. Oh, let me put in a Paragon point. Yeah, physical damage. Whew. Even more damage. So, honest to God, the Barbarian itself is very strong. Well, there's a big guy here. So yeah, if you really need to, you can also go use your Wrath of the Berserker, okay? This is something that I use often if I really need additional unstoppable, or if I'm engaging with somebody that I think is exceptionally strong. I will use the Wrath of the Berserker combined with Rallying Cry to absolutely delete them, you know, in moments, because of the damage increase. So you can chop and change and combine your shouts as needed, but the thing is, most of the time you won't even need that. As you can see, even 11 levels higher, with shrine buffs, I've shredded everything. Alright, like, there's literally no danger here at all. We're gonna travel to Skeletal Rise now, which I believe should hopefully be more of a threat than the rest of this entire area, because we've literally cleared that in about 4 minutes. Alright. Okay. So basically, your Hammer of the Ancients will eliminate a large section of enemies. If you see those with cold affixes, I usually will immediately use my Rallying Cry, so I maintain my Unstoppable. Then once my Unstoppable goes off, I use Wrath of the Berserker to further combo it. And then that way, I've got a huge duration of Unstoppable. Again, same thing that applies in PvP. So yeah, basically, within this 4 minutes, I hope I have shown you exactly how we play this. I would have loved it if a Butcher showed up, but unfortunately, there isn't one, so I'm just going to finish out this dungeon now. I hope this combat showcase has been useful, because as you can see, you don't really get threatened by a lot. You can just comfortably destroy all your opponents, as long as you use your shouts well, and as long as you structure how you use your shouts, it should not be a problem. Okay? If I get any other boss footage, I'll show it here, but other than that, there will be a Butcher clip. Thank you very much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next video, okay? Y'all have a good one. Butcher!
Oh, good lord.
Ah. Just gonna murk him. He's easy. Lol, Butcher 11 levels high. What you gonna do, my Barbarian? Huh? Have you heard the story of Vasco? You know what happened to Vasco, Butcher? There you go, dead.